I wasn't always somebody that would like take the time to learn things. Actually, in high school, I thought I was stupid because I would read a history book and be like, what?
I don't get it.
Like I just read the chapter 5 times. And like I would get to the bottom of the page and know what I was going to wear to school the next day, but not know. It just wasn't interesting to me.
Right.
Now it is super interesting. So you have to know yourself. You can't just make yourself like love something.
Exactly.
You know, but I mean, I think you're kind of downplaying like how like analytical your mind is and how many things like as you're talking about certain things. It's just like, yeah, I guess when it comes to Web3 and like AI and stuff, and it just comes down to how you can extract the information and then retain it as well to be able to talk about it. And that's what I love about my life now is that I'm constantly pitching for new clients for social media or whatever, and or pitching a film or trying to raise funds or whatever the case. So I don't second guess myself anymore because I'm like, yeah, it is. I know everything's in here.
Yep.
And now since I'm not smoking weed or drinking coffee, which, you know, I wish I could have found a balance. I'm too extreme. But eventually maybe I will be able to get back onto it and find a balance, but I'm super clear minded now.
Yes.
I used to need the coffee for the jolt to
just like pop.
Yeah. But now I'm kind of more steady and like, you know, I can explain myself because I'm explaining it every single day to people, you know, and so I think that's where the practice makes perfect. And whatever kind of information that you're drawn to find the best sources for that. Now, like for books, I don't read books. I do audiobooks and it's great for me. But sometimes I'll read an audiobook that somebody recommended to me and I'm like, nope, not
for me.
No. But all these, I'm doing this like new, stretch of CEO books and businesses and culture. And I'm like, a lot of it is telling me that what I've been doing is great, but thinking about, and that's why I was able, as you're talking about community, I'm able to understand the different processes of what happened during your time there. But like how you could be the chief of staff and build a great culture. But because I've learned from these other ones, I haven't built something that big yet. So it's like I'm able to understand it just because recently I just dove into a book that I actually found a way that I could retain information. So yeah, that's what I would say. But I think you're already there. I like getting information from you too.
This is always a merging of the minds, but I think like you said, and that is, you just unlock something for me that I think is the toughest. It's like, okay, well, if I see myself going here, or like I want $1 billion business, right? I know what that looks like. I'm like, okay, I know it has this. Well, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Because I've never been there, you know? So what are the resources I have to figure that out? And I think that was the biggest thing, because it's like no choice is the wrong choice, but you just have to make a choice, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like those things were really interesting. And some of it had to do with things that I learned where, yeah, like the person that's attracted to being at any company, but especially a tech startup, when there's 5 people, is going to be very different typically than the person that's interested in being the 500th employee or the 5,000.
Where were you guys at during your time?
Me on the first 10. First 10. I don't know. I think all of us, if we sat around a table, we'd be like, no, I was at the couch.
Yeah.
You were at the place, you know.
And then when you left, how many were you guys
When
at?
I left, they were just rounding the corner probably towards 150, 200.
Yeah, that's...
So, you know, you kind of go through different chapters too. It's like you get to about 30. You're like, all right, let me re-sign up for this. And that was the way that Matt, the CEO, who I adore, and we had such a great working relationship. I think in any chief of staff, that term used to mean something very different. I think it was some people were trying to find a way to understand it. And it was usually just a form of elevating someone that they didn't know how else to elevate. That's just my experience. I don't know if that was similar for a lot of people, but for me, it's like just really an extension of the CEO, and you have to know every CEO is very different. They're going to need different things. The business is going to need different things. I see that as like a partnership. It's like a yin and yang type of thing, most successful anyway. But that being said, every time we got into a new chapter, we would sit as a whole team and say, this is what the next chapter of this business looks like. This is what the hours looks like. This is what the product's going to look like. We would address it for each area of the business so that everyone had the opportunity to think about where they're at, because it was going to be such a drastic change, and see if that made sense for them, you know, because maybe it didn't and there was nothing wrong with that. But at least they knew, instead of getting into what was essentially a new role, a new job, and still kind of wondering how things just happened to them. So that's always like my advice with people with startups, just making sure that they're re-signing up with it as the business evolves, so that they are not still looking in the past at like, oh, that was so great when it was just 10 of us. You know?
Yeah. Like,
I'm like, was it?